Kids, I've got a full show for you planned today. Movies, books, politics, and so much more. We're going to talk about it all, but I want to start things off with the politics portion of the show. So please, kids, pull up a chair and listen close, because we're going to get serious to start things off. If you've looked in the news recently or been on the internet inside of the last week, you'll have seen that the president of Ukraine, Vladimir Zelensky, met with President Trump of the US recently, in which he made several demands of the US during a live press conference held inside of the Oval Office. And it ended in a heated argument, and while I want to talk about it, I don't want to necessarily talk about Zelensky directly or even our own president directly, because that's been talked about to death already in every piece of coverage possible. They're talking about the argument and the exchange and the emotions in the room itself. But I instead want to target something else. I want to use this exchange as a springboard to talk about some possible directions for the Trump cabinet. And full disclosure, at the time of this recording, I don't know of any updates regarding relations between the US and Ukraine. Maybe they already reached a deal, maybe they haven't, but I want to focus on the exchange specifically regarding President Trump and JD Vance, his vice president. And you can expand upon all this by doing your own research, but simply put, it appears that Trump has one view for the US and the world, and his vice president, as I mentioned, JD Vance, appears to have another. And I think it's of high importance to talk about the potential impacts from what could be split thinking regarding something as big as America's place in the world at large. And so with the comments made by JD Vance in juxtaposition with the comments made by President Trump, there's a lot to dissect here. Could this lead to a version of a worldwide reset? And what I'm talking about is that, as I said, there appears to be some different opinions and some different mindsets regarding how the US should not only go forward regarding specifically Ukraine and the war with Russia, but also what the actual world could look like. And so while you might think I'm like diving into the deep end of the pool here, based off of just one thing, I think that this has large ramifications. And so what I mean is that the Trump administration appears to be putting some meaning behind the words peace through strength. You can see that through our tariffs, the bolstering of our border security, and so on. Because Trump appears to be a transactional president, and that can mean a lot of things for a lot of different countries, hence why the exchange in the Oval Office got so heated regarding Ukraine, because Ukraine made demands, and Trump said, okay, I'll hear you out, but I want something in return. And this can mean a lot of different things, because what if Canada, who's also in the news, or Ukraine, who's very predominantly in the news, or Taiwan, who sadly could be in the news even more, what if they don't want to be entirely transactional with the US? Could deals still get made? Could Trump flex his, quote, art of the deal muscles across the world? I think so, because I think that if Trump is going to put this peace through strength mantra into motion, there has to be concessions made on both sides, being the U.S.'s side and also whatever country we're dealing with at that time. But what if Elbridge Colby of the Pentagon and his vice president, J.D. Vance, what if they had different opinions? What if they think that we should leave other countries to their own devices? Is America withdrawing from the world, or are we standing firm? And which way is correct, and which isn't? And the easy answer is that I think it needs to be somewhere in the middle, which, yeah, is obvious and, whatever. But I don't say that because it's easy. I say that because it's what I believe. I think that America being too far and too deep across the world isn't the answer. But I also don't think we should become isolationists, which is perhaps what J.D. Vance may have at least been alluding to regarding his comments in the Oval Office. Again, you can expand on all this by doing your own research, and I encourage you to do your own research and to check out the various videos regarding the press conference between Zelensky and Trump. But again, J.D. Vance, I think, revealed some things very quietly that could be expanded upon. And so, yeah, I don't think that it would be good for the country or for the world, for that matter, for the U.S. to become such an isolatory country. Because at this point in time, at the time of this recording, I think Russia feels emboldened regarding Ukraine, and I think China feels emboldened regarding Taiwan, because those two things are also directly related to the Biden administration pulling out of Afghanistan. Excuse me, tongue twister. Because you look back to Afghanistan, you think about these horrible images of people falling out of planes, people running on the tarmac, and so on and so forth. And we did that, and what happened? We pulled out of Afghanistan, and what happened? The country got immediately worse. And you can argue all day about if America should have been there to begin with, and why were we there in the first place. You can argue about all that, but you can now literally compare between the time that the U.S. was in Afghanistan and the time the U.S. was not in Afghanistan, and you tell me which you think looks better. This is why I think the U.S. should park an armor brigade in Taiwan. I believe that. I believe that we should put an armor brigade in Taiwan because that provides some kind of deterrence regarding China. Sometimes the best offense is a defensive measure. And I also think that it's in America's national best interest to have those kinds of placements in the world. Again, looking at Afghanistan and potentially Taiwan and so on and so forth. And that's how Ukraine could go as well. Because America's interest as a country does in fact rely on a strong America abroad. The internal interests that we have here as Americans inside of our own borders is directly linked to the strength of America abroad across the world. With us as the US being the legitimate world superpower that we are, that allows for huge benefits for the American people. And this is usually economically speaking, so people don't always focus on it, but it's the truth. You can debate the morals of the US being a superpower all day long, but you should look at your wallet too over the course of history regarding how we fit into the world. As a country, we sell our debt and other countries buy it. Now, why is that? It's because those other countries expect a return on that investment. The dollar is the world's reserve currency. And why is that? It is because the US is economically strong. And so, yes, while there is that constantly ticking debt counter, I believe, in New York, and we do have a lot of debt, we do. America is still a relatively strong country economically, and the rest of the world recognizes that. Hence why other countries buy our debt, because they want a return on that investment. And we also have the US dollar as the world's reserve currency. And this strength, this system, relies on globalization. And that realization might make people shiver, but it's the truth. And our economic strength is literally tied to our foreign strength. Because we have our huge navy, for example, guarding shipping lanes across the world. We help ensure worldwide trade. So you're welcome, world. Like the US Navy does that. And because we occupy so much of the world, there simply isn't a stronger alternative in terms of military and currency. Maybe that should change, maybe that could change, but you need to legitimately ask yourself, what should that switch to? Should that switch to China with their debt that's worse than our own? The EU, who doesn't seem to really care about innovation? Like, hello, what are we talking about here? So we're the best shot we have, in my opinion, both as a country and for the world itself. And so, JD Vance, if you're listening, and I know that you are, I really want to know your expanded thinking on this and many other things. So please come on the Far Out podcast and let's have a discussion. And that's really my full commentary regarding the press conference that happened between President Trump and President Zelensky. Moving on. Well, actually, before we do, I want to give kind of a closing statement to that last segment of the show. I appreciate having this platform to be, frankly, a platform for whatever I want to talk about. Whether it's something as serious as politics, however rare that may be. It's why I haven't talked about it a whole lot since Inauguration Day, because really only if something interests me in the world of politics. I want to talk about it, but it's why, while this is predominantly an entertainment-based show, hence why I talk about Batman and Superman until I'm blue in the face. It's why I can have on guests like Adam, and we can talk about something as deep as Catholicism. And so I appreciate the listeners having a rather diverse palette when it comes to topics that they want to absorb, and I appreciate not being pigeonholed to anything specifically. It's not like I am, because this is my show. I made it, and I'll talk about whatever I want. But I get it. Like I'm just a dude who's into movies and TV and stuff. It's like, why is he talking about politics? And it's like, I get it. People talk about this stuff for a living. There are literal political commentators who do this day in and day out. And so that's why I encouraged you to go do your own research regarding that exchange between Trump and Zelensky. And so, yeah, I hope that, just as how I want to use this podcast to talk about anything that I like or find interesting, I hope that when you listen to this, uh, you also have your interests sparked, and perhaps you'll go and expand, your history with a film or with a book, or with something as serious as the political landscape. And so, yeah, I like having this show to talk about anything from politics to movies to books. Oh, look at that, kid. Seamless segue. Yes, we're going to talk about books now because I finished several books over the course of a couple of weeks. And when I say that I finished a book, that means I can either be A, reading it, B, listening to it via audiobook, or C, both. Because if I got to pick, I would actually have a copy of a book I'm reading or consuming, both in traditional book format, paperback, and also audiobook, because I like to read actual books when I'm home at my place. But then if I'm going on a long car ride, I like to bring that book with me and listen to it, over an audiobook. And the first book in question we're going to talk about, I only consumed via audiobook, which perhaps helped me and also did not help me at the same time. And the first one that I want to talk about is also the first in a very iconic and classic series, one that has been in the news recently for both good and bad reasons. We're going to talk about James Bond. Yes, kids, before Bond was a film star and before he had all his movies, he existed in books and novels. And I read the first James book novel being Casino Royale. And as I said, this is a book that I had via audiobook, and uh, the actor in question that actually read the book, his name is Richard Armitage. I believe I'm pronouncing his name correctly, and he's a good actor. He's been in some big movies like Captain America, the First Avenger, as well as he was in the Hobbit trilogy, and so he's a good actor and he has a great voice. And so he did a really good job of carrying this book, but even his smooth and buttery voice could not save me in some areas. And so, yeah, for the book Casino Royale, I will say that I liked it. However, I did not love it and I did not hate it. But when I say I liked it, you have to imagine that my category of like for this book is more on the lower side of things. I'd give this about a C minus, I'd say overall. But let's start off with what I like about, and then we'll transition to stuff I did not like. Firstly, stuff I liked. It is the history of James Bond. You're looking at the inception point of the character of the franchise, and so if you're a fan of James Bond, it's great to check out any James Bond book, let alone the first one. So that was fun. Also, having seen the movie Casino Royale, that this book was translated to, that provided a great and fun framing device for elements of this book. So that's not necessarily I guess, a positive towards the book so much, but it helped clear things up having already seen the movie. However, I think this book is strong enough to stand on its own, regardless if you've seen James Bond or not. So perhaps that's more of an adequate positive for said book. I also appreciate how much detail they give, in the book as well. Though that's actually kind of a double-edged sword because I'm going to talk about that a little later too. There's a lot of detail though, and also the literal sound of Armitage's voice. You know, he's an English actor, so he has that incredible accent. He provides a lot of gravitas to the character as of James Bond, and frankly, every character, from male to female to the overall narrator. Him him being, you know, in your headphones as you consume this book was great. I think they had to get someone who was English. I don't think that an American, you know, would have done as good of a job reading the story. You needed that kind of steady, leveled voice, tempo, you know, and sound to really convey the sense of execution that I think Bond warrants, and so that was really good as well. Uh, However, if you're familiar with the story of Casino Royale at all, whether you've whether you've read the book or seen the movie, uh, you'll know that this story revolves around a game of baccarat, which is a type of card game. It's not poker. It's not blackjack. It's baccarat or baccarat, however it's pronounced, which is incredibly complicated. And I've never played the game before. My only exposure to the game is through James Bond in question, and you know, having baccarat read to you is very confusing, you know, because that, again, it is the driving force of the plot, is that Bond takes on the antagonist of the story, not with a gun, not with cool hand to hand stuff. His overall objective is to stop this villain from procuring a lot of money at a baccarat game. And so it's a very gentlemanly form of combat, in the sense that everyone is dressed to the nines and everyone looks beautiful, and you're picking up on the subtleties of someone's potential tell, or if they're gonna, you know, fold or stand, or, you know, whatever. But that's all conveyed great. That makes great television, and great, that's a great thing to watch in terms of a movie. It is not great to read about or have it read to you. Perhaps I would have understood it more if I actually read it myself with my own two eyes instead of listening to it. However, when Richard Armitage is talking about, you know, the number of cards, the values of cards, the placements of cards, the sequence of cards, I'm like, holy crap, I can't understand what's happening. And so the real nucleus of this book is this game, and I got lost in it, which, again, having seen the movie, I survived. I treaded water. If you have not seen the movie and you get lost, you're out. You're out big time. So that was an issue, is that perhaps you have to A, see the movie to really understand this, or B, you have to actually read this story as opposed to listen to it to really get all the details, because boy, you can get bogged down in the details. Again, despite me saying I appreciate the amount of detail that's put in terms of describing the clothing and the room layout and so on and so forth, that's all good. But when it comes to something as action, quote, action driven as a card game, I just got lost in all of it, and I required to constantly back up and listen to stuff over again. So that was a little annoying. Also, and I don't know if I should really knock the book for this, because it's really more of an evolution of the character overall, since he's now, you know, a film star. But the characterization of James Bond in the book Casino Royale is vastly different from the characterization of James Bond in the film, or films, but I'll just talk about the actual movie Casino Royale, just that singular characterization, and compare that to the book. I'll say this: I think the movie does everything better than the book. I really do. Because in the book, James Bond is not this super suave, super cool, has everything together spy. He's just kind of an everyman who gets overwhelmed and shows a lot of emotion, and, you know, cries and such. And I'm not saying like men can't cry. No, I cry over movies and TV just as much as the next guy. But like, when you think of James Bond, you frankly kind of think of someone akin to Batman. You know, because Batman has all his gadgets and is physically fit and always knows what to do and how to get out of a situation. James Bond is kind of that way too, at least in the films. You know, that's kind of how he's been presented on the screen. And so then to go back and to see, oh, he's not this super cool, got it all together guy in the books. I was kind of like, okay, I think I prefer the movie James Bond more than I do the books, you know. And granted, I've only ever read one James Bond book, being this one, but still, the characterization of him left a lot to be desired because uh, women don't flock to him in the book; they flock to him in the movie. Uh, he has to pursue the girls relentlessly, and I say relentlessly in the sense that like there are large portions of this book, probably a third of this book, I'd say, between 20 to 30% of this book. Okay, let's just say a quarter. A quarter of this book is him pursuing his love interest, Vesper, and it is just written to within an inch of its life. I mean, it comes across as a Hallmark script where it's like, you know, he longed for her flowing hair across her simple shoulders. You know, he ached for her touch. It's like, holy crap! It's like, what's going on here? And after the spoilers for Casino Royale, an old book and an old movie, but after the conflict has been resolved with the game of Baccarat and the villain Bond and his girlfriend Vesper, they essentially retire. Well, they don't retire. Retire. They escape to a a tropical getaway, and that's the last like 15 to 20% of the book is is Bond and his girlfriend, running on the beach and having meals and trying to get their emotions out to each other because they're both spies. Again, spoiler. But it's like holy crap. It's like, can I get a little more action? Can I get a little more momentum? What, like, why does this come across as a Nicholas Sparks book? There's a little tease for a future topic there in the show, but like holy mackerel. So yeah, in the book Casino Royale, James Bond is not uber cool. And maybe that's how the character was always meant to be categorized, is that yes, he's a spy, but this is a very real interpretation of James Bond, a very real interpretation of a spy, someone who gets overwhelmed and stuff like that. But I'll just say this: I preferred the movie version a lot more. Uh, but the probably the most notable scene in the movie is the torture scene where James Bond is tied naked to a bottomless wicker chair and has its privates set upon this by a large rope with a knot at the end. So yes, in the movie, the villain captured James Bond, strips him naked, ties him to a wicker chair, cuts out the bottom, and then whacks him in the privates with a large knot made by a large rope. And boy, that is a lot to absorb when you're watching the film. It's also a lot to absorb when you're reading or listening to the book, because Ian Fleming does not hold back any details. So, in terms of translation to that scene, that was great because you felt a lot of the emotion and a lot of the stakes and frankly the desperation of it all. Dealing with that kind of torture. Um, it's not overly grotesque or anything like that. Neither in the book or in the movie. It's just conveying, you know, the how sensitive that part of the body is, and so when you're experiencing that in the story, you're like, holy crap, they're not pulling any punches, So that was fine. But yeah, Casino Royale overall, frankly, that might just be it. It really was just fine. Yeah, it just left a lot to be desired. I'm glad I checked it out. Because again, I like books and I like experiencing stories in multiple different ways. But yeah, perhaps James Bond belongs on the film screen, though he wouldn't exist without the book. So I have to give shout out, to the original source material as well. But yes, regarding Casino Royale, which is the first James Bond novel and also the first James Bond book in the Daniel Craig era, which is also my first James Bond movie. You always remember your first when it comes to these big series, being Star Wars, Star Trek, Lord of the Rings, and James Bond. It's my first. I'll say this: the movie is fantastic. Casino Royale is an incredible film, arguably one of, if not the best, James Bond movies. In terms of books, I don't know how the other books stack up, but it's not an incredibly high bar to pass, the one that Casino Royale has set. So, yes, if you are interested in James Bond and in getting more James Bond, because we may be a few years away from a new film, I do recommend checking out the book series because I'm sure they're fun to listen to. But yeah, overall, Casino Royale was okay at best. Anyway, moving on, but keeping it with books, keeping it with the spy genre, actually, I finished another book, and this is the second book in a series I've been reading, a series I've already talked about. This being Mitch Rapp, the spy Mitch Rapp, and his series of books written by Vince Flynn, a Minnesota author. Shout out to him and his estate, even though he sadly passed away. The series is still running as of today, and it's just being written by other authors, but this is one that he actually wrote himself prior to his passing, and this is called Kill Shot, which is the second one in the series here. And I liked it. Very similar to Casino Royale. I liked it, did not love it, did not hate it, but I think my liking it is a little on the lower side, though between the two being Casino Royale and Killshot, I like Killshot more because I thought it did more. However, despite me saying that, I think I simply found Killshot to be a little anticlimactic because it sets up a lot of tension in the story between characters, between allies, or at least people that you think are allies, and when those egos, when those temperaments come to a head, and when things happen in the world of spies and espionage, there's this setup for this greater conflict to happen that, frankly, I thought kind of went out with a whimper. I still like the book. I still really enjoy the series, and I'm gonna read the third book in the series, and I'll go on from there as well. Because much like Jack Reacher, well, there's another plug for another thing as well. Jack Reacher started out as a novel series, got a film adaptation, had moderate success, and then transitioned to television, where it has endured even bigger success. And I think that the Mitch Rapp series of books needs that kind of treatment because it's a book series, it had its film adaptation, it did okay at best to really not that good, hence why it hasn't been continued. And I think that the Mitch Rapp series of spy novels is just begging for another adaptation. And I think that it could potentially work really well on the small screen via a TV series, or I guess a streaming series nowadays. I still would prefer film because I'm a big film fan, and I'm a much larger film fan than I am of TV. But the Mitch Rapp series is incredible, and this book is good. It's by no means bad. I'll just say, I just felt it left a lot to be desired in its climax, and especially when compared to the first book in the series, being American Assassin. I mean, that one does uh, such a great job of setting up the world and the characters and the stakes, and then to have the second book in the series, frankly, not follow as strongly as I thought it could have or should have, was a little, you know, so. But yeah, I've read American Assassin 3 times now, if not even four. I can't really remember, and I could easily pick that one up again. Killshot, I really have no desire to go back to it. Maybe I will at some point, 5, 10 years down the line. But yeah, especially when compared to the first one, it's not that good. But I'm interested to see how the rest of the series progresses, and I hope you get into the book series. I hope you're willing to check it out. And hey, look, if you read Killshot and you think it's the greatest thing in the world, please comment below. Let me know, because I really don't want to deter anyone from checking out this series. Because again, it has kind of a personal, you know, reverence with me in the sense that this is from a Minnesota author, and I remember when my father and I went to go see the adaptation of American Assassin, and so I want to see this series succeed in the best way it can. But if it only exists in books right now, then please consider checking them out. And yeah, perhaps you'll like Killshot. Again, I liked it, did not love it. But yeah, the Mitch Rapp series is really good, and I highly recommend it. Anyway, moving on. But keeping it with books, we're now going to talk about the previously teased Jack Reacher, and I'm not going to be talking about his TV show, Reacher, which is incredible, and I have not started the third season yet, though I hear that is also amazing. I'm actually going to talk about the source material for the character, that being the book series written by Lee Child, because I checked out one of the Jack Reacher books, this one being technically the 15th in the series, and this one is titled Worth Dying For. And whereas with Casino Royale and Killshot being books that I found to be simply good or ones that I just kind of liked but did not love, I can very confidently say that Worth Dying For is an incredible book, and I loved this book. And I'll even go so far as to say this, perhaps this should be your introduction to the character of Jack Reacher if you're looking to get into the series, whether it be the show or the novels or the film series, what have you. Because this is really incredible. And though it is the 15th book in the series, this does a great job of setting up the world, the character, Lee Child's writing style. And I think this is a great entry point for anyone to check out the story of Jack Reacher, or the stories, I should say. And I'll also say this too: while having an actual book to read is perhaps the best way to consume literature. In terms of audiobooks, the Worth Dying For audiobook is spectacular, and the reader who provides the narrative for this, his name is Dick Hill, or Richard Hill, and he does an incredible job. And his voice provides such it provides such a great atmosphere for the story. Everything feels cold and dark and brooding, but not in an oppressive way, not even in like a Batman way. It's just like you feel when he describes the wind, running through, the trees and hitting the characters, and when he describes how, the sun is setting and the light is disappearing and now everything is becoming engulfed in shadow and blackness. He does a great job of setting the tone for every scene and what the characters are doing. Uh, I, I, it might be the superior way to absorb Worth Dying For. I don't know if me reading it would do it any better than having it presented to me by Mr. Hill's voice. In fact, I feel that if I did read it, the voice in my head reading the words might even be his own voice, because he did such a masterful job. He set a bar incredibly high, and so if I decide to check out another Reacher novel in the series, I hope he's the voice artist that does the reading for it, because he's really incredible. And so while I really appreciate books and bookstores and novels and paperbacks, if you are going to check out this book, I really recommend you check out the audiobook, or perhaps you could be like me, who gets a physical copy and then an audio copy as well, and you just kind of take it with you wherever you go. So yeah, Worth Dying For is amazing, and again, it really encapsulates Reacher. When you read the book, it really you can see how his character is translated so well to the screen. If the TV show is the reference point for the character, and I don't include the movies because they weren't that good. I mean, the movies were fine, but the real characterization of Reacher, I think, is done the best in probably the TV show, if not the books. And so if you're comparing Alan Richardson's Reacher to the books, it's very easy to slot him in. There's only a few points to where I was like, well, you know, the TV show Reacher wouldn't do that, but again, this is the original source material. And yeah, Worth Dying For is incredible. To the best of my knowledge, this has not been adapted to the TV show or the movies yet. I don't know if the movies or the show kind of cherry pick from a couple of different books when they're, putting stuff to screen. I don't think so. I think that each movie, and each season has gone for a straight adaptation of one singular book. And so I'm hoping that if Worth Dying For has not already been loosely adapted, I hope it then gets a full adaptation because this is a great story. It's a great story of good versus evil in the sense that Jack Reacher is your hero, he's your protagonist, and the antagonist are human traffickers. And when you see them get their comeuppance, when you read Jack Reacher taking out the traffickers, there's nothing better. They are villains you love to hate. They are villains you want to see fall. And Jack Reacher delivers out some pretty great justice throughout this story. So yes, I loved Worth Dying For. I'm gonna pick up another Jack Reacher novel. I'm not sure with which one in question. I might go the next one just right after this one, or I might jump around some more too. But yeah, Worth Dying For is amazing. Highly recommend that you check it out. Anyway, moving on. We're now going to transition into movies because I watched some movies recently and I want to talk about them, dang it. So you're going to listen. Thank you for listening. One of the movies I watched in question was The Notebook, based off the book by Nicholas Sparks, the romance movie that stars Ryan Gosling and Rachel McAdams. Yes, kids, I watched The Notebook, and I know what you're thinking. You might be like, that's a girl movie. It's a chick flick. What are you doing checking out The Notebook? Why don't you go watch something better like Saving Private Ryan or Star Wars? And it's like, look, fellas, bullcrap, because The Notebook is amazing. Have you not loved before? Like, if anyone has ever felt emotions toward anyone before, you can attach yourself to this story, to this movie. Ryan Gosling and Rachel McAdams are phenomenal in this movie. While I think their relationship starts off pretty thick like molasses. I mean, the way Ryan Gosling just lays it on, like, I love you when I need you. I'm like, okay, like, kind of, chill out, my guy. What happened to courtship? You know, when it finally blossoms and, takes bloom in the whole deal, them together as a duo is spectacular. You can feel their chemistry and you can really feel the emotion. And this is because it's coming from great source material, being the book in question, and also the script translation as well. I think was written really well. And I like this movie so much. I like the story so much that after I watched the movie, I went and I bought a copy of the book. And so now I'm reading the book as well. And I'll just say this: I'm not very far into it. I'm maybe 10 to 20% through the book. But in terms of what it's given me of the story already, I think the movie does a better job. At least right now. Eventually I'll talk about the book when I'm done with it. But so far, in terms of consuming the story, the movie I feel is superior, at least right now. And it is a tearjerker. It is, and I think that if you're someone who is in a relationship, whether you have a boyfriend or a girlfriend, and if you're married, I think that'll add a certain layer to this film if you decide to check it out. But also, if you're someone who has gone through heartbreak, I think that this film will also really resonate with you. And I certainly felt a lot of the emotions conveyed through this, and again, it had me. It really did. And I watched it because I'm a big fan of Ryan Gosling. I think he's an incredible actor. But yeah, while I went for Gosling, I stayed for the story and for the execution, and I just found it to be really masterful, really emotional, really, really genuine. Just kind of blew me away with how deep it is. Because I think this movie gets a bad rap for it being a quote chick flick, but I don't think it's. No, I know it's not that simple. I watched it, dang it. This isn't the Hallmark special. This is not the Hallmark special. Shout out Hallmark, but like this has real emotion to it, and I really really enjoyed it, and I think that anyone who is interested in movies or in Gosling or has any history with knowing love towards another person, I think you'll really like this book and this movie and or this book as well. And so I recommend you check out The Notebook because it blew me away. I wasn't expecting a lot from it, and it gave me a whole heck of a lot. So yeah, The Notebook is pretty gosh darn good. And keeping it with movies, I also watched another film recently, and I rewatched this in anticipation of its sequel, though I thought it was coming out this month in March, even though it comes out in April, so I'm a little early, but it gives me time to rewatch it again because it's just that good. And this is 2016's The Accountant. Yes, kids, The Accountant, starring Ben Affleck, John Bernthal, and J.K. Simmons and Anna Kendrick. This film is incredible, and it kind of came and went in the year 2016. I remember seeing this in the theaters, and I was like, wow, that was really, really good. And each time I've watched it since then, I've thought to myself, this is really, really good. There's something about the characterizations, the action, the actors. They do incredible work, and it's just a really fun and entertaining time. You know, spoiler or really just a summary or like a synopsis for the film, but in it, Ben Affleck, the main character, he plays this forensic accountant who is also this kind of quasi hitman because he does accounting for some known criminals and terrorist groups, and so he himself has to be armed and equipped to handle conflict and to fight and kill people himself. And so he's proficient in hand-to-hand combat and weaponry as well, but he's autistic, he's on the spectrum, and so he's incredibly analytic and detail oriented, even to a fault. And I don't know specifically, the overall background that went into him preparing for the role. I'm sure he did his due diligence, and I think that anyone on the film recognized that there needed to be a certain level of respect conveyed for the background of playing someone who's on the spectrum. But in my estimation, from what I know of that disease and that illness and people who are on the spectrum, I think he did a really great job of conveying it, of conveying someone who perhaps has difficulties when it comes to understanding emotions and social cues. However, when faced with a task, they're just down to business. And so I thought he did a great job with playing that kind of character. And I also found it to be incredibly funny, even though it really wasn't meant to. But just kind of the bluntness of him as he's trying to communicate with others, it works for some comedy. And I think it's kind of like Sheldon Cooper from The Big Bang Theory. You just kind of he's quirky, but you love his quirks because he doesn't always know how to respond to certain situations, and that's kind of how the accountant is in this movie. Just imagine him also as being a trained killer, So there is something very heartwarming and endearing to him, and when it comes time for him to put down bad guys or to save someone, I mean, once he sets his mind to it, he's on the job, and he goes straight to business. And I also really appreciate the tactics. I think this movie had a good tech advisor because, as I mentioned in a previous episode of the podcast, they use a Barrett 50 cal very appropriately because yes, it is a sniper rifle, and when people think of sniper rifles, they just think of a long gun that can shoot far distances and take out dudes. And while you can use a Barrett 50 cal for that, it's really overkill because that's a huge round, and so that weapon system is primarily used for disabling vehicles, for hitting engine blocks, and in the movie, that's what it's used for, and it's great to see it used that way. And then Ben Affleck, as he disables the bad guy's vehicle, he gets in, goes in for some hand-to-hand combat, and it's all that better to watch because he's using good tactics. And also, I appreciate that when the gunplay does happen, when the bang bang and pew pew takes place, he's really efficient in how he takes care of business there too. It's not this random handgun, just one bullet to the back and the bad guy's dead, like so many movies and TV shows do. No, it's two, three, four rounds. And Ben Affleck, the accountant, he goes out of his way to get headshots on dudes. Like he will put a guy down with 3 rounds, doesn't matter. He will do a fourth one straight to the dome piece just to make sure. And I'm like, that's good. That's good because I mean, if you know anything about if you read any kind of history, I mean, what for any kind of wars, you know that people can survive really severe injuries. Sometimes people have been shot multiple times. 5, 6, 7 times plus, and they still lived. So the fact that it's not just the simple, oh, one shot you're done, one shot you're done. No, it's he's making sure his targets are down, and I respected that, and they have good weapon discipline in terms of mag changes, and their muzzle flashes look really good as well. I think that from a technical perspective, this movie really does great. And again, the characters are great. Ben Affleck is great. John Bernthal, who plays the brother of the accountant, spoiler, but again, it's like almost 10 years old. John Bernthal is great. He's also a trained killer and hitman as well. They have great rapport with each other, the two actors. And then Anna Kendrick is just a delight. She's incredibly charming, incredibly fun to watch, and also shout out to her. She was one of my first ever Hollywood crushes, and so getting to see her in any movie for me is a real treat. But to get her for something as this caliber, for something this good, to see her get this kind of role, I thought was really fun. And speaking of The Accountant, the reason why I watched this movie is because, again, the sequel is on its way, though, again, I thought it came out this month in March. It comes out in April. But I'm looking forward to The Accountant 2, and they released a new poster for that movie. And if you listen to a previous episode of the podcast, I talked about the first poster as well as the first trailer and how I did not like either. I thought they were just okay. This new poster, I frankly think is more the same. I'm not a fan of it. Is it better than the first poster? Yes, but by barely anything, because if you look at how Ben Affleck is positioned and his facial expression, they literally just took out they took out him from the first poster and put him onto this new poster. So there's no change in him or his facial expression. But getting to see John Bernthal there on the poster is great because he is such an incredible character in the first movie, and so it's good to see him get highlighted in the second one there. But I mean, it's just a picture of two faces. Doesn't convey a lot about the movie, which for me is a real bummer because you have to. I think a really good film poster captures the essence of the film, of the story, of the stakes, the plot, all in one picture. And this to me does absolutely nothing. But again, The Accountant is incredible. I'm looking forward to The Accountant 2. The bar is certainly set high for me, so I hope that film is good. I think it will be, despite its marketing being kind of lackluster in my opinion. But I do recommend The Accountant if you have not checked it out, and I hope to see you at the movies when The Accountant 2 comes out this April. Anyway, moving on, we're going to leave film now and do a kind of throwback topic for this portion of this episode. If you listen to a previous episode of the Far Out podcast, I believe it was number 5, titled Cravin' Some Root Beer, I did a taste test of various root beers, and this was based off a picture I found online that compared Barks to Mugs to A&W, and then to see which one was the best. And so I did just that. I collected those 3 root beers and I did a taste test and I talked about it on the show. And people seemed to really like it. I remember it was a topic that got a lot of traction and extended actually beyond the comment section on YouTube. People actually wanted to talk to me about it, in the real world. It really started a discussion of comparing root beers, and there was so much feedback on that topic that I was actually called upon to do an expanded version of it where I included 1919 root beer into that evaluation as well. So then I did a new taste test comparing the 4 root beers. And while 1919 did come out on top of the 4, I still do give a shout out to Barks root beer, as I believe that is kind of an underappreciated version of root beer. But then it was brought up to me that I should do a version of this regarding Mountain Dew because there is many different flavors of Mountain Dew, and I know that this isn't all the flavors here, but I did procure several flavors, at least being 6, and now I'm going to do a taste test and a comparison and a review of a Mountain Dew here. And I say that this isn't all the flavors of Mountain Dew because I know that there are some out there that exist. I couldn't find them. I know for certain there's a yellow one that I went out looking for and I couldn't find it. And then I remember also when Baja Blast was getting released, it was part of this kind of social media campaign to where us as Mountain Dew fans could vote on which one we want to have released, nationwide, worldwide. They were doing these kind of taste tests to see which one we liked more. And Baja Blast came out on top. But I believe at the time it was its companion, its counterpart, was a more kind of purplish, darkish, almost blackish one, and I could not find that. And then I think also during holidays like Fourth of July and stuff, I think they also have a red, white, and blue Mountain Dew as well, which is also clear. So I know that this is not every flavor of Mountain Dew, but I went to three different stores and two different gas stations to get these. So Lord knows I went on an excursion to find these, and I'm excited to compare the ones that I have here. And yeah, I hope you guys have just as much fun with this one as you did with the root beer. And so I'm looking forward to getting into this. And this actually has to do with the announcement of another kind of Mountain Dew coming out. It's a Taco Bell exclusive, also another kind of dark purple, close to black version. And this is a play on Baja Blast, and it's called Mountain Dew Baja Midnight. And this is a Taco Bell exclusive, I guess. But yes, on the heels of another Mountain Dew flavor coming out, we're going to compare some that already exist that you can pick up at any one of your local gas stations or stores. And so going left to right, then I'm going to compare down the line, starting with Code Red Mountain Dew, the red one here. And so yeah, I'm going to start off with that one. And all these are fresh; they're new at the time of this recording. I just popped the seal on them, and I poured out the same amount into 6 different Dixie cups here. So that's just giving some extra details regarding how I'm going to do this. But yes, I am about to take this drink here of Code Red, and then I will get back to you. I mean, come on. I'm kind of starting off strong here. Code Red Mountain Dew is fantastic, and I think amongst Mountain Dew fans, this might even be some favorites. Look, you got the classic, the OG, the neon green one. When you think of Mountain Dew, you think of that. Then you got Baja Blast, a staple of Taco Bell, the one that won out that fan competition there many years ago. But Code Red, it's arguably top three, if not top two, if not the best of the best here. And I have many amazing memories of long nights of gaming with friends at sleepovers, drinking not just Mountain Dew, but drinking specifically Code Red Mountain Dew. And I love cherry flavored soda, cherry Pepsi, cherry Coke, and yeah, Code Red Mountain Dew pulls no punches in the flavor department. And so that certainly was really really good. And all of these I have some history with, except for the last one there being Overdrive. That's going to be entirely new to me. But yeah, Mountain Dew Code Red holds a lot of memories in my heart, and so that's going to be a hard one to beat. I'll just say that. But now we're moving on to the second one here, being the first orange one, the kind of the lighter version of the orange, and this is called Livewire. That's good. That's good. What's interesting is that the second before I took the actual drink, I could smell it. I caught the smell, and that smelled kind of like orange medicine. So that already is a huge knock against it. The fact that in the very last moment before I got the actual flavor, I got this kind of, you know, high C, orange, um, what's that called? Not high C, it's emergency. The orange tablets you dissolve in water to help with congestion and stuff. That was the last little kick that I got before I actually tasted it. In terms of taste, it's fine. It tastes just like an orange soda, very close to, say, a Fanta. So Livewire is good. If you're looking for an orange soda, I recommend going Fanta. But if you're brand loyal to Mountain Dew, well then here's your orange soda for you. But yeah, not a whole lot to write home about regarding Livewire. Good, fine. It perhaps scratches the itch of the orange flavoring department for Mountain Dew, but we'll see what Overdrive does over there. But anyway, moving on now to the blue one being titled Voltage. Oh yeah, that's fantastic. A true palate cleanser when compared against Livewire. Voltage, the blue one here, tastes just like the back end of one of those bomb pop uh, uh, popsicles. The red, white, and blue ones. Imagine that thing melt. Imagine the blue end of it melted down into a cup, and you drank that. That's Voltage Mountain Dew. I mean, you can't get any higher praise than that. So yeah, Voltage, the blue one here, really, really good, really strong, really good flavor. Certainly, because it's flavored like raspberry, whereas Live Wire's orange, Code Red is cherry. Of the three right now, the blue, the Voltage, tastes the most like as advertised. I get the strongest hint of raspberry, of its actual fruit, when compared to Live Wire and Code Red. So yeah, Voltage, really, really good there. Really appreciated that. I might burp into the mic. I can kind of feel it brewing, even with these little bits of Mountain Dew I'm getting. All right, now we're moving on to Baja Blast. Very, very good. Again, there's a reason it won. And there's a reason, Taco Bell has it all the time. When you go to a Taco Bell and their gosh darn soda machine is, freaking out and it doesn't have this or that, the Baja Blast always works at a Taco Bell because they know that's what the people want. And that is a very, very strong Mountain Dew. And it's also a great color, especially when compared to the classic neon green and kind of the dark blue of the Voltage. I mean, it's literally a good, middling part there. Very appealing in terms of flavor, smell, and presentation. So yeah, Baja Blast is really, really tremendous. All right, now we're moving on to the classic, the OG Mountain Dew. Yeah, I mean, come on, you can't beat that. I mean, it is the Mountain Dew. It's the Mountain Dew. You know, all these are subdivisions. They're all flavors. They're all spin-offs. This is the original version. So yeah, the original Mountain Dew, great color, great taste, great smell. You can't beat it. The original Mountain Dew, that's up there. Still strong after all these years. Okay, now I'm moving into the last one, the Overdrive one, which is one I've never tried before up until this very taste test. So I'm interested to see how this goes. Mmm, yeah, okay, yeah. Overdrive absolutely dethrones Livewire when it comes to the orange department. Uh, they're I realize this now as I look at the bottle. They're not both orange flavored. They're just orange in color. Livewire is meant to be orange flavored, whereas Overdrive is peach. It's described as a citrus punch, but it has a peach on the label there. You get strong notes of peach in Overdrive. That was really good. That one actually now has the strongest fruit flavor associated with it. And so Code Red Cherry, Livewire Orange, Voltage Raspberry, Overdrive Peach. You get the most pop from the fruit there in terms of Overdrive. So that was really good. That was a really nice surprise. So in terms of how I'd rank these, boy, that's really tough here. Oh, I kind of want to do another taste test, but excuse me, I just burped. But I know I shouldn't because I'd have to refill the Dixie cups. I'm going just off of memory though. Um, well, excuse me, I just burped again. Yeah, okay. I think I got this. Coming in at number six is Livewire. That, I mean, it was fine, but it was essentially just sugar medicine. So yeah, Livewire at number six. At number five, I mean, this is where it gets tough now. Oh boy. At number five, I'm not gonna like how I do this because all these deserve to be a lot higher. Oh boy, I don't know what to do. At number five, I'm going to be like reluctant. I'm going to be thinking about this after I post this episode. At number five, um, I'm going to put Voltage, which that's, yeah, I don't like how low that is because the Voltage was really good. At number three, I'm going to put Code Red which again I don't like as well because that to me is like I have so much appreciation for it and so many good memories. But again, these are all really good. The only one I dislike, that even dislike is a strong word, is Livewire. All these are so good. So they're really going 5 out of 6, if not arguably 6 out of 6. It's just the smell of Livewire kind of got in the way. But yeah, we got Livewire, Voltage, then Code Red. Now in the top three here, I think I'm gonna go. I think I'm gonna go in the third spot. Baja Blast, which again, I mean, Baja Blast is amazing. And then I'm going to go number two being Overdrive, and number one is the original being the OG Mountain Dew. Maybe it's the newness of Overdrive. Maybe it's the reason I never had it before that I'm putting it up so high. But I mean, seriously, if you have not had this kind of Mountain Dew, I recommend it. I really, really do. It really had a large flavor profile, especially compared to the other ones. I think that was the reason why Code Red also kind of fell a little lower than I thought I'd place it because maybe it's just the bottle I got, but as you know, compared to the other ones, I didn't get a strong hint of cherry. I got it. It just wasn't as pronounced as the other ones that are so fruity. Because going into this, I thought, oh, Code Red has this on lock. And again, I said that as I did my first taste test. It was the first one I drank, and I said it's got a high bar. But yeah, I mean, really, the flavor profile of the fruit in Overdrive was really, really strong. And then at number one, you have the classic, which is kind of funny because the first one isn't always the original Mountain Dew isn't always the first one I reach for from the fridge. I think if I'm gonna get a Mountain Dew, like while I'm on like a road trip or something or from a vending machine, I might go a Baja Blast or a Code Red usually. But man, maybe I just haven't had the original in a while. But the original Green Mountain Dew, really, it you really are just reminded of why it is the original flavor. It's so good. So yes, uh, the ranking is from number 6 to number 1. At 6, Livewire. 5, Voltage. I forgot what I said. Uh, at 4, Code Red. At 3, Baja Blast. At number 2, Overdrive. And at number 1, the original. I really hope that's what I said earlier in this recording, but you'll have to let me know in the comments down below if that is in fact what I said. But yeah, okay. So I really enjoyed doing this. I want to say thank you to the friend in question named Jackie, who shout out Jackie, who recommended this challenge for me, the segment for the show because she was a big fan of the original root beer taste testing. And so yeah, if there are other food groups that have a lot of varieties that you want me to do a kind of a test on, I'm all for it. I mean, I could think of like cereals, maybe ice creams. I mean, that's a slam dunk right there. Even other sodas like I mean, I love Pepsi. They don't have a lot of different flavors, but there's still some variety there. But I'm looking forward to the new Mountain Dews, and hey, like if I forgot a bunch of other flavors of Mountain Dew, if I can procure other flavors, I'll happily do another taste test, another evaluation, another comparison. So yeah, I really hope you enjoyed this. I did. It was great. It was tasty. There's not a bad one here, except Live Wire is kind of like the distant cousin, but otherwise, no, these are all great. And yeah, I really, really recommend you check out that Overdrive flavor, that peach flavored Mountain Dew. That sure was something. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed this segment. Thank you so much for listening. All right, kids, moving on to the last portion of today's show. Initially, this was going to be just one more topic, one more food topic, mind you, but then something came across my desk that I must talk about. But before we get to that, let's handle the food topic first. Recently, I made a milkshake. And who doesn't love milkshakes? You get some ice cream, some milk, some chocolate syrup or whatnot, throw it into a blender, mix it up, boom, you're good to go. It's a classic, iconic beverage, dessert, whatever you want to call it. But anyway, I had a milkshake problem. I could not figure out how to get my milkshake to be a certain level of chocolate. It wasn't chocolatey enough. No matter how much syrup I put in, I was like, this tastes good, but it's not what I'm looking for. I'm looking for a very chocolatey milkshake. And I was thinking, how can I solve this? Could I do even more syrup, even more than last time? Could I do chocolate ice cream? And I thought, no, I really prefer vanilla. That's my favorite flavor of ice cream, by the way, is vanilla, just straight vanilla. And then I thought, oh, I got it. I can change the kind of milk I'm using. And so I made a discovery. I decided to make a milkshake with chocolate milk. And boom, that solved my problem. No syrup required, no chocolate ice cream required. The chocolate flavor profile was fully given with the addition of chocolate milk. It was tremendous, and it really did solve my problem. Made it very rich, very smooth, very creamy, and I really liked it. So yes, kids, if you've never made a milkshake using chocolate milk as your mixing agent, I highly recommend it. I don't think any other chocolate is going to be needed after that. That might be too much. But if you're looking for something that just has a little more oomph in the flavor department, I go with chocolate milk. It was quite good. And then the last topic in question, the last thing that came across my desk before I went to record is coming from People Magazine or People.com, whatever you want to call it. And this is the first Loch Ness monster sighting of 2025 reported. And it is said to be some kind of dark mass under the water. That's the headline there. And this was reported from Doris Beach in Scotland. And there's a picture here, and it shows just as simply as what the headline described there, some dark mass, more of kind of a blob or a blur under the surface of the water there. Uh, could it be the Loch Ness monster? Yes, it could. Uh, could it be nothing? Yes, it could. Is it the Loch Ness monster? Yes, it is. No, I have no idea, but I want aliens to be real. Bigfoot, bring it on. I don't think that's real, but bring it on. But in a world where we're looking for Bigfoots and aliens, yeah, bring on the Loch Ness monster. We have forgotten about that one. It's been a minute since we had a sighting. Maybe that's because it's not real, but whatever. We can dream, dang it. But yeah, the Loch Ness monster reportedly sighted in Scotland again in 2025. Not nearly as good of an image as the original. I mean, that one's iconic because it looks like a dinosaur head. But this is really more of just a dark patch of water. Could be anything. Um, but if it can be anything, then let it be a Loch Ness monster. Okay, that is my show for this go around. I want to thank everyone for listening, and I hope you enjoyed. And I'll see you in the next one. And if you're gonna get a Mountain Dew in the near future, I recommend you get the Overdrive Peach flavor. All right, I'll see you.